Hey guys, welcome back. I'm very excited for today. Today we are going to be covering CMAs. And if you're in real estate, you should know. Okay, take that off. All right, let's try that again. Today we are going to cover CMAs. And if you're in real estate, you are going to know that a CMA is comparative market analysis. And let's just talk about that for a second. Comparative market analysis, basically, it is figuring out what the value of the home is compared to other homes that are like it that have sold. It is not a science. It is an art. There is no, like, one plug and play, and this is the one way that it's gonna be done for everybody, and there's no one formula out there that's gonna work for every single property. So, you really need to hone your skills in this area if you're going to want to be very, very successful. And you need to know this information not just from a sales side, if you're gonna list a property, but you also wanna know it from a buyer side. And I learned that early on in my career. I was representing a seller. We did a market evaluation. We came up with a number, put it on the line, and some very seasoned agents approached me and they said, "Hey, we're going to bring you an offer." And I said, "That's fantastic." When they sent the offer, they had done their own market analysis of the property and they justified why their number was different from the number that I had selected. And it was very interesting to go through and look at where I got my information from and why I picked it, where they got their information from and why they picked it. And it opened my mind to some things where I was like, I can see where they're coming from, but I can also see why I did not use that property. So nobody was right and nobody was wrong. It was just a good place to find out where people are coming from, how they valued it, but more importantly, supporting what you're offering, what you're offering. And then buyer and seller can agree or disagree and make a decision on what they want to do going forward. But what I feel that it really does for our profession is real estate agents become very knowledgeable and they can defend the number or the information that they have for that area. And we're going to also discuss how being able to do a CMA a day and learn the market is going to bring you business because we would all like to have some business. I don't know if there's any agent out there that is like, I'm so busy, I can't take on any more business. And if you are one of those agents, I'm very happy for you. You probably got it. So let's start with here. Um, yes, one of the questions I got asked was, will knowing how to do a comparative market analysis make you appear as a real estate expert? I don't know that's going to make you appear as a real estate expert as much as you are going to be a real estate expert. If you know how to do a CMA and you are doing them regularly, maybe not every day, but you're doing them regularly, you are going to have to know the market. I don't know how you would be able to do this and not know the market. So you're going to be coming from a place of intelligence, education, and facts. Facts are going to be what are going to help you because you're going to feel like, oh, you know what, I think the market's going in this direction. You could say, no, I know this area is growing or this area is not growing because you know exactly what's going on. And then it's going to give you credibility. People are going to want to listen to the actual information instead of just your feeling. So the next question I got was, yes, I find that a lot of people, a lot of agents have confidence when they know what's going on in the market or in a neighborhood. I work with a lot of new agents, and many of them tell me that they were uncomfortable having a conversation either with a buyer or a seller because they're worried that they're going to get asked a question that they don't know the answer to. I think we have all been there. I know I have been there, and even with all of my years and experience, I still feel like I don't have all the answers, and I don't think I'm supposed to have all the answers. I feel that I'm supposed to know where to get those answers. And if you know how to do the comparative market analysis, while you may not know all of the answers right away, you know where to get them. And when you have them and you've got your research, you are going to have more confidence in what you say. So let me give you an example. If you and I were both at a party and a person came up to us and said, "Hey, you're both in real estate. I'm thinking about selling my home. What's the market like?" And if You said, "Well, you know what? I think it's really a buyer's market right now. Um, that's what we're seeing." And that's where you ended it at. And then they looked at me and said, "Well, Tammy, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, you know what? Where do you live?" And they said, "Oh, I live in this subdivision." And I would say, interestingly enough, I just ran some numbers for somebody that is also in that subdivision. Or it could be, I ran some numbers last month for that area for a buyer who was looking to purchase in that area. And here's what I found. I found that there were 26 homes that sold year to date in that area, and they sold between 350,000 and 500,000. Now that's a pretty big spread. And the reason for the spread being that big was the $500,000 house had a pool, whereas the other ones did not have a pool. The average price that was being sold for a three-bedroom, two-bath was around 400,000. If it was a four-bedroom, either two and a half, three-bath, then it was more like 450. Who would you wanna work with? Exactly. This is going to give you confidence. I didn't make numbers up. I actually am using numbers from a specific area that I literally just ran those numbers for, but I feel confident because I know this information is true, and if somebody said, "Can you show that to me?" I can 100% show that to them. I'm not speaking from my feelings or my opinions. I'm speaking from actual documented facts. So I do believe that having the knowledge of the CMA a day or just know how to do a CMA and will give you the education and will give you the knowledge for you to feel confident. Let me take a second because I've got these little kittens crawling all over me. This is Angus. I do foster kittens, and these are in our office today, and so Angus has decided that he's going to join us. So the next question I have been asked about CMAs are, mm, yes, it does help you stand out as a knowledgeable agent, and it does boost your skills. Doing a CMA is not difficult, okay? It's not hard. Does it take time? Yes, it takes time. If you're gonna do it right and you're gonna really do your research, this isn't like something you do in 1 second and it's done. It's going to take you putting eyeballs on the property or at least going through the listings and seeing what is different from this property that's sold versus this property that's sold. Sometimes you're fortunate enough that the information is gonna be online someplace, but sometimes it's not, and you may have to call the agent on the other side, and we will talk about that just a little bit more later. Um, and it can help you stand out as an agent who always knows what's going on the market. So let's walk about, let's see here. This question was um, how to do this as a routine. Okay. So let's start with first of all, you're a new agent. You've never done a CMA, and the first question is like, how do I even do a CMA? Do I do CMA on? There are so many different ways. One, if you have a house that you live in, or if family members or friends live in your area and you can use their house, then use their house. It's a great conversation starter with a friend saying, "You know what, Mary, I just got my real estate license. I've been given a homeowner's assignment to learn how to value properties. Would you mind if I used your property?" No, don't worry, Mary. I am not trying to sell you anything, not trying to list your home because and just say, "I just need to be able to do a market evaluation and learn how to do it. Can I use you as an example?" So use a friend, use a family member. If you don't have one of those, then go to a property that maybe you're interested in buying yourself. Maybe you saw something online and you decided, "You know what? I wanna buy that property," and you want to know what the value is at your market offer. So that's another option. Another way to look at it is look at your neighborhood. If you see that there are some houses listed for sale in your neighborhood, and you decide, I wanna know if the value of that house is accurate, and use that as your example. So there are many, many different ways for you to pick an ideal property for you to do as your first CMA. Now, I would caution you, I would say, when you're doing this, find a house that's in a subdivision that's got some sales. This is not when you wanna do like the one obscure home in the middle of nowhere where you're not gonna be able to find any comps or anything to compare it to, and you're just there's a way to do those as well. So look for a property that's in a subdivision and make sure that maybe in the last 6 months to the last year that there were some sales in there that you could actually compare it against. So now that we have found our ideal property that we're going to do this with, the next question is, okay, well, found the property. As a real estate agent, your board is going to have a multiple listing service, and that multiple listing service is going to have most likely a video walkthrough how to do a CMA. So the first thing that you need to know is how to use your own software. Now, there are so many softwares out there. There's RPR, and there are many softwares that are aftermarket that are all going to be saying, we're going to show you how to do a quick CMA or do a CMA in 5 minutes. There are a multitude of software to purchase or use for free that will do a CMA for you. But garbage in is garbage out. Your CMA is only as good as the information that you are going to put in it. So the first thing you need to know is how to use the software. Because once you know how to use the software, then you're going to research what's going to go in the CMA. All right. So since there's so many different softwares out there and I don't know what you're going to use, I'm not going to show you how to do a CMA on any one particular software, but I will tell you there are hundreds of thousands of videos out there that will show you how to pull this information on how to use that software. But let's focus on the how do you get the information for the CMA. So now we've already identified the property, and you know what software you're going to use, and you know how to use the software. And I said earlier, garbage in and garbage out. Some people, when they're using software CMA, is because they don't know how to use it, they just let the software do it for them. They give an address and they say, hey, 123 Adams Street. And then what ends up happening is the system will pull in 30 different comps that have sold around it, and suddenly it will spit out this 100-page document. And I've seen agents think that that's really clever. They're going to give this 100-page document to the seller, and the seller can be, wow, they have a 100-page document. No, many sellers just feel overwhelmed and they don't even want to read it. And if they're not going to read it, you think, oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm so smart about reading this document because it's so thick and I just dazzled them with information. If you can't explain it, then they can't understand it. But another agent's going to come in behind you and they're going to have like a one-page document. They're going to say, this is why your home is what it's worth. And they're going to be like, you know what, that agent, they just really make everything make sense. It's just so easy to understand them instead of like, here's a 100-page document. So don't think just handing them a document that you can't even understand or explain is going to get you the listing or get you the buyer. It's not. It's just going to show that the information is too complicated for you to simplify it in a way that they can understand. And nobody wants to feel stupid. And that's oftentimes what buyers and sellers say is that they didn't understand the information they were given and they didn't want to ask because they didn't want to appear stupid. So, what are you going to put into your CMA? You are going to obviously need to know what is the address, and we're going to look in a geographical area. Now, I recently had a seller company and asked me for a market valuation on the home. They are in a rural area, and in this rural area, there were enough homes that sold within a 3-mile radius that were similar to their house. So we had enough inventory that we were able to come up with a market valuation for their home. They did not like the market valuation for their home. I don't control what the market does. I can only report on it. I wish I controlled it, but I don't. So we reported on what was happening in the market with data. And they came back and said, I don't like that number. There's a house over here, and that sold for $150,000 more. And I said, okay, well, what's the address? I could have missed it. I mean, nobody's perfect. I absolutely could have missed that property. That address was 30 miles away, 2 cities over. That property was never going to be comparable to this property. And I said to them, I said, listen, the appraiser who's going to come out is never going to look in another city. They're not. That'd be like Dallas versus Austin. they're not going to look there. There's enough information immediately surrounding your property that they're gonna pull that as your number, and they're not gonna need to go 2 cities over, 3 miles away. And the buyer or seller didn't hear what they wanted to hear. And so we parted ways, and I wish them the very, very best. I have an idea how it's gonna work out, but, you wanna use information in that local area. That's why for your first one, I would like for you to start with a subdivision so that you stay inside the subdivision. All right? So we've said we've got the address. We're going to stay local, right? We're not going to go miles and miles away. And we're certainly not going to go cities away. So we're going to stay local and, if possible, stay inside the subdivision. Now, how far do you go back? Do you go back 6 months? Do you go back 6 years? I can tell you right now, you don't go back 6 years. But if in the last 6 months there are a numerous number of homes that have sold, then 6 months can't be enough time to go back. But if you go back 6 months and only one home sale, then you might need to go back a year. Depending on the appraiser, some appraisers will go back 2 years. Some appraisers will say, no, I won't go back 2 years, I'll only go back 1 year, and then they end up going out. That's why this isn't a science, because you don't know what the appraiser is going to do. It's an art. And you could, if you want to be really good, do both methods. You could say, okay, if I stay in the area and I go back 2 years, what does that number look like? But if I only go back 1 year, but I broaden it a little bit to include other areas that are similar to this, what does that number look like? Listen, they're both right because the appraiser could do one or the other, and that's where you start having different opinions, and you have to do like a justification of why you feel that it is or is not correct. But that is something you're going to have to decide what you're going to do, and it may change depending on one property versus another property. So let's say in our situation here, there are no homes that sold in the last 6 months. So you're going to be in the community and you're only going to have to go back 6 months. Now, the next thing is you want to have a comparable property. If your house is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot home, then you're going to be looking for 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and 1,500. You might go as little as 1,300 to 2,000. You might go 1,000 to 2,000. I mean, that's a pretty big spread. I don't know that there are that many 3-bedroom homes that are 1,000 square feet. But if you have, like I said, 26 homes that are 3 bedrooms, then you don't need to search for a 2-bedroom, right? You don't need to search for a 4-bedroom. Now, sometimes I will tell you, even if I've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, I might bring in a 4th bedroom because the other homes that are 3-bedroom, 2-bath may not be remotely like the property that I'm looking at. It may be like, okay, I need to go with the 4-bedroom. It's more like the condition, age, and features of that property. And then I will just need to adjust for the extra space and the extra bedroom. So that's why there's not one way that it's going to be done, because you're going to need to look at each one of these properties that are sold so that as you're going through the photos, you can really know, okay, this one is most like the house in which I am running the comps for. Next thing you're going to want to know what we talked about, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, square feet. You're also going to be looking for the age. Now, if you're in a community, the great thing is all the houses are probably going to be close in age. So you're going to be also looking at things of what's the age of the roof, the water heater, the electric, the HVAC. I look for things like what type of flooring in that. Do we have tile floor? Do we have luxury vinyl blanket? Luxury vinyl plank? Is it carpet? Is it dated carpet or is it brand new carpet? I look to see have the kitchens or bathrooms been cleaned? Is there a screened porch versus open porch? Is there a pool? Is the yard fenced? So all these little details start adding up because when buyers are coming through the house and they're saying, well, okay, the houses are both 3-bedroom, 2-bath, they're both right around $1,500. They were both 3 years apart, but this house just put a new roof on there. That is going to add value. And this house has white cabinetry. And this house has brown cabinetry. May not be a big thing, but when you're looking at the closed sales, you're finding out that all of the houses with white cabinetry sold in less than 90 days, but all the houses with brown cabinetry took 90 days to sell. That's gonna give you an indication of how long things are taking to sell, and it may not be as desirable of a feature, and so you may have to price down for it. So those are gonna be just a few of the things that you're looking for. Other things that you might be looking for is there gas versus electric? Um, maybe the type of blinds, sometimes I see that there are a lot of shutters. Are there solar panels? Is there a security system inside the house? Of course, 1 or 2 car garages in there as well. Other things that you wanna look for is the position of the property in relation to the other properties. And what do I mean by that? Is this house next to a road? Is it back up to a main street? Or is it at the end of the community where there's a lot of trees, green space, probably close to the pool or the clubhouse there? So where it is in the community is also of value as well as the lot size. Does it have a front entry garage, a side entry garage, or a rear entry garage? Because rear entry sometimes means that there's not as much yard space in there. So you're gonna be looking at all of those things. Now, for me, what I like to do to keep all of this making sense to me is I actually like to have everything printed out into a spreadsheet. And when you're using the multiple listing service, you can export the information into the spreadsheet. And then I add all these extra columns that are there because the spreadsheet does not have things for like when was the maintenance done? What is the floor in the living room versus the kitchen? And was the bathrooms updated? So I add columns for those, and then I either put yes, no, or I put the year. Oh, fireplace. Fireplace is another one of them. And then how many stories? Single story or two-story. And so I start adding that information. Also, office. You might have a three-bedroom, two-bath with an office versus a four-bedroom that doesn't have an office. So you can use one of those as an office. So I add all these columns so I can check boxes, and then I've got an area for notes. I also look for things like sell. Were there any seller concessions on this? What type of financing did they use? And how many days was it on the market before it got an offer? I also look at what time of year it closed. If it sold in the busy selling season, that's a different number than it is if they sold, in off season, because that would be a little bit more. So, let me make sure here. I haven't checked your questions yet. Okay, great. So all of that stuff will go into the valuation of the property. Now, sometimes you don't have a lot of information or there may not be photos. What I would recommend that you do if that's the case is if you've got a good relationship with the listing agent, or if you don't know them and you want to get to know them, call the listing agent and say, "Hey, listen, I'm doing this example for CMA, and property was selected, and I just need some information from you about the sale of the property." And they'll say, "Oh, you know what? That was a really difficult sale because, or it was a really easy sale because," and then they'll give you information that's going to go into coming up with your valuation. Whew. So now you have all your information on what you're going to look for when you're doing your valuation. And now you're going to export all of this information, or if you're using a tool like VR, you're going to select these are the properties that are most like this property, and you can give it what we call weight. So you're saying, okay, well, I'm going to use this number, and it's 100% like the property, or it's like, if I had 100%, I'd give it 60%. This one's like this one is 20%. I know that did not equal 100, but you're gonna give it weights on better yet, let me explain this to you this way. When you're thinking about a seller and you found a property that is most like their property, size, features, condition, and it comes up as $300,000. It's most like their property. And the seller comes to you, and of course, they're gonna put the property that they like, and they say, this one sold for $375,000. So why aren't we using this number? Because this is the number I want. That's why I mean weight. We're going to say, well, this property is going to have more weight because it's most like your property. And this one over here that you really like, the number is least like your property. So we might assign it percent weight to it because that house is $75,000 more than what I'm telling you, and it has a new roof. Oh, and a new water heater, and new electric, and new plumbing. And that's why even though you like the number and even though it's in the same community, it's not the same price that your house is going to get or fetch, I was gonna say fetch, because you're not comparable to this house. That's sometimes hard. It's sometimes hard information to give the seller because it's not what they wanna hear. Nobody wants to hear that their property or condition is less than somebody else who got more. And yes, you're gonna have the seller go, "But mine's got this natural light that's coming through this one window." Okay? Yeah. I am sorry. Buyer is not gonna spend $75,000 more because their window has this natural light. But that's what they wanna hear, right? That's what they're telling themselves. So that's what I mean by we're gonna define. And so when I'm going into a presentation, I will say, "Listen, a lot of properties have sold. This one right here is most like your property, and this is how much it sold for. Yes, I understand this property here sold for a lot more, but unless you wanna add the pool, update the roof, update the kitchen, update the bathroom, and then update your electric, HVAC, plumbing, and electric, we're not gonna get that extra 75,000. So tell me if you wanna spend the money to get 75,000. It's probably gonna cost you 150 to get the 75, but if you're doing it, I'll be here for it." And so you kinda have to bring it back to reality a little bit. And then what you've learned is you've learned what the other houses look like. You've learned what is normal and to be expected in that subdivision for that price point. So if anybody were to ask you at any point, any party, any dinner, just talking to somebody randomly in the grocery store, and they were to say, "I want to buy a house, I want $400,000, what does that get me?" Well, you know that it can't get you a three-bedroom, two-bath with a pool and some upgrades in this area. So that knowledge is power. On the flip side, if somebody came to you and said, "I wanna get a four-bedroom, three-bath house, and I wanna get it for $250,000." It doesn't exist. That house does not exist. So, you wouldn't waste your time with somebody going, "You know what? I'm gonna get on that for you right now. I'm gonna start looking for some houses." And then you go to your computer because you haven't done your CMA and you didn't know that that property does not exist. So then you take the time to call this person back and you say, "Hey, I couldn't find anything for you." And they're like, "Oh, but keep looking." And then you committed to do work for somebody and look for the one unicorn that is out there that you're probably never gonna find, and if you did find it because it got listed once, 100 other people also found that same unicorn, and it cost a bit more, and guess what? It drove it over the number that they were willing to pay. So, having that market knowledge, having the CMA knowledge is power. It gives confidence, it shows that you're a market expert, and it also saves you time of not wasting your time with an unrealistic number, and it gives you time in the sense that when somebody says, "Hey, this is what I'm looking for," you know exactly what's already out there because you've already done the research. So the next thing on here is yeah, okay. Um, when you do this, how can you turn this into sharing your knowledge with the rest of the world and maybe getting some leads from it, whether they be buyers or sellers? Well, make a video. Okay? You don't have to make a video of you doing the whole process from beginning to end. I mean, nobody wants to watch you working for hours, and I'm sorry to tell you, yeah, sometimes it takes hours to go through this. Like I said, it's not hard. It just takes time, and a lot of people don't wanna spend their time doing this because it's not fun, it's not flashy. You're thinking, "I wanna be showing houses, and I wanna be going to open houses, and I wanna be doing tours." That's fun, right? Sitting at a computer, hashing out numbers, looking at photos for hours on end, it's not there's not a lot of video content you can make of it. What you can do is once you're finished with your number, I always find that it's quite interesting, and so that is your video. So, for example, one subdivision I was looking at, I made a video and I said, "Okay, so I I was just working on a comparative market analysis for one of my sellers, and interestingly enough, did you know that in this neighborhood, there were 26 homes that sold since the beginning of the year. There are only 152 homes in that neighborhood, so this is gonna be a very good turnover rate, and the reason for that is it's only 15 miles from the hospital, 15 minutes. It's only 15 minutes from the hospital, so if you're somebody who needs to be working at the hospital and you need to be in close proximity, this is the neighborhood for you. And the home prices, oh my gosh, they are anywhere between 350 and $550,000 if you would like to get a pool. But if you're more budget conscious and you wanna be able to be in something affordable that's not gonna break the bank, there were many homes that sold underneath $400,000. And so you can talk about that and you can say, now, in this neighborhood, you can expect homes to be 20 years old, but the great thing is the majority of them being that age, the seller has already updated their roof. So that is how you could share your information is you are just sharing true data of what you've already researched and you're now sharing it with the world. And so somebody is going to be watching that and they're going to say to their friend, oh, you will want to live closer to work. And you know what? Isn't this in your price point? So then your content gets shared. Or people just see you and they go, you know what? That person really knows what they're doing. Because the favorite question that people love to ask you is, how's the market? And you know what my response is? It's great. Why do you ask? I don't have an opinion on the market until I know why they're asking. To try and tell them what it is without knowing why they're asking, I I've never understood that. I've never understood people who say, It's great." Well, no, not for everybody. Not if you're a seller right now and, and you bought last year. It's not great for you because you're not gonna be able to sell. Or if you're a buyer who's looking to buy 200,000 and you want a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, it's not great for you either because you aren't gonna find it. So I need more context. I mean, the market's always great, right? It's always great for somebody. Or you could say, you could just say, "It's always changing. Why do you ask?" I need to know why you're asking. Um, so and let me give you an example of that. Somebody had asked me one day, they said, "Hey, Tammy, how's the market?" I said, "There's a lot of activity right now." Now that activity could have been just looking, that could have been sales. I mean, it could be a number of things as the why there's so much activity. So I said, "There's just a lot of activity right now." And I said, "Why do you ask?" And they said, "My mom died a year ago, and I've been working on the property, and finally at a point that it's cleaned out, I have a tenant in there, the tenant was supposed to buy the property, and now they are flaking out and they're not gonna buy the property, and I need to know what to do with the property." That was good information, but it wasn't enough. I need to know, where is your property? What part of town is it in? Is it a desirable area or is it an undesirable area? I need to know how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, because there's not that big of a demand for 1 bedroom, 1 bath houses. There's just not. There's a big demand for 3 bedroom, 2 bath houses, and there's a bigger demand for 3 bedroom, 2 bath pool houses. So I needed to know more about the house. Then the next thing, what updates have you done? What is the age of the house? After gathering that information, I was able to go, you know what? You have 2 bedroom, 1 bath house in an area of town where affordability is an issue, and the price tag for your property is going to be right around $225,000, which is an affordable price for a lot of people wanting to get into homeownership for the first time. So I think there's gonna be a great demand for that property just due to its affordability and where it's located in our city, because people wanna be there and there's just not that many homes that are affordable. And so for them, I knew that it was gonna be a great thing, but I also knew that things working against that because the house was older and it hadn't been updated, but it had been updated enough that I knew that it was gonna get past, some financing issues. So I would not have known this information if I had not been researching the market and studying the market to find out what is going on in the market at all times. Now, when you get busier, it's easier to do this because you specifically are looking for numbers for a person, whether they are buying or selling. But when you're starting out and you don't have any customers and you're like, "I don't know where to start," you're gonna have to pick something. You're gonna have to pick a person, you're gonna have to pick a place, and then you're just gonna have to get educated. Right now, I am working on 3 CMAs. Instead of doing 1 CMA a day, I'm, like, doing 3 a day, and that's because we're getting ready to list 3 properties. And so I need to do market evaluation for those 3 properties so that we know what our list price is going to be. And so it gives me 3 opportunities to make content so that I can share with the people the information that I'm getting. So I could be like, "Hey, you know what? I had no idea, but I'm running the numbers for this person in Indiana Hills. It's a I don't even know if that's the name of it. I think it is. This gated community where there's only like 15 homes and they rarely come up for sale. And did you know?" And then I could go into the rest of it. And somebody would be like, "Oh, whoa, whoa, wait a minute. She's getting ready to list a house in this neighborhood. I've always wanted to live behind those gates." And so that can create awareness, which brings me to a whole different video that's a different video about you can't be hired if you're not an option. If people do not know you exist, they cannot hire you. So making this content, showing your knowledge, showing your education, and coming across confident because you're speaking from numbers, not feelings, is going to have your content shared, and then someone else is gonna see it, and once they see it, you now become an option. People will see you and be like, "Oh, you know what? They really know what they're talking about, specifically this area that I really wanna buy or sell in. Let me give them a call, and maybe I might hire them." Maybe they don't wanna hire you for that property at all, but they just keep thinking about you and they hire you in the future. I can't tell you how many times I have been stopped, usually in restaurants, because you know me, I love to go out to eat, where people are like, "Hey, I saw you, you're that person." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they go, "Can I give you my number? I'd like for you to call me because," and then I get hired to, like right now, I just got hired to do property management for somebody. "Do you happen to do property management?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And so I got hired for that. Do not confuse your engagement on your social media, your worth, okay? You may be putting this content out there, and I really hope that you are, and you're gonna call me up, and you're gonna say, "Hey, I've been putting content out there for a month now. Nobody's liked it." Beauty of it is nobody's gonna like it. Nobody has to like your content. Nobody has to subscribe to your channel. We're in an age where the algorithm knows stop on your video or your post, and they watched it long enough for them to go, "You know what? That person like this person. We're gonna keep feeding them this information." And so you're just gonna keep popping up, and then the algorithm's gonna know that these kinds of people are looking for content, and they're gonna put you out there. Some of my best videos that I felt were amazing, that I finished them up and I'm like, "I am so proud. This is such a good video. I provided so much value." Nothing, nothing. My most viral video was almost 5,000,000 views. You know how many sales I got from it? 1. Yeah, just 1. That's it. Um, the video that gets like 36 views, 6 sales. Mhm. Yeah, 6. 6 sales from that 1 video. So people are watching. Oh, they're watching, and they're not commenting, they're not liking, they're not subscribing, but they are watching. And then they know that you're knowledgeable, they know that you're confident, and they've decided that you are the person for them, and or they've decided that your information is good enough that they wanna share it with somebody else. And when the time is right, they are going to hire you. But if they're sharing your information, that's really, really good. But the only way for you to get there is for you to become knowledgeable and put yourself in their position. If you were a person who's looking to buy or sell a property and you didn't know a single person and 3 people sat down and interviewed, and this one person came in charismatic, super nice, high five, you got the same hobbies, your kids go to the same school. I mean, all the things, like, this is your person. But they were like, "Oh, yeah, the market's great. Like, we're gonna sell your house." days, like, it's gonna be totally you wanna hire them, like, you want them to be your BFF, right? Well, that's not a strategy, that's just a bad decision. But then you get the geek, all right, who comes in there and they say, "Hey, you know what? Our data is this, it's this, it's this." I don't make up the numbers, I only report on the numbers. And so if you're gonna wanna move and you're gonna wanna move in the timeframe that you wanna move, then let's on the book. You're gonna have to do all of this. And it is what it is. Again, we don't make the numbers. If we did, I'd make them entirely different. But we don't make the numbers. We just report on them. And the buyer or seller has to decide what they're gonna do. And in today's market, we are seeing sellers not accepting data for what it is, and they want to be what I call sold, or they're giving it to somebody who's what I call buying the listing, and so they're being told what they want to hear, only to end up being frustrated that that number didn't work out. Because at the end of the day, like I said, we don't set the number. The buyer set the number. And the history of what we're doing this CMA has showed what the buyers were willing to pay. And they weren't willing to pay a penny more. When you're looking at those numbers, something I left out, when you're looking at your CMA numbers, you're not only looking at what has sold, you also need to look at what didn't sell, what has expired. Because let's say you're looking at some numbers in 3 bedroom, 2 baths, you're seeing that everything sold around $350,000. But you're seeing there were 2 houses that expired and they were listed at 425,000. They're similar homes. There's nothing different or special about them versus the other ones that sold, but except for the price tag. And so that's telling you that the buyers have rejected that number. The buyers, not us. The buyers have said there is no way that they were ever gonna pay 425 when they have enough homes that they can buy at 350. So when you're doing your market analysis, you also wanna know what numbers out there have buyers tried that haven't worked. So you're gonna look at your solds, you're gonna look at what didn't sell. You're also gonna look at what's under contract. Now that contract number doesn't mean where it's gonna settle, and most agents aren't gonna tell you what the number is because the number could change between when it went under contract and when it closes due to concessions. And so, you're gonna look at that, and then you're also gonna look at the active. You wanna look at the competition. So if somebody comes to you and you're seeing that every house that's sold has sold at 350,000 and they started at 375, then you know that if you start at 375, you're gonna end up at 350. But if somebody says, "You know what? I want to start at 380," the reason you need to know what the actives are is you're gonna say, "All right, if we're willing to start at 380," okay, like here's the next cat. They're all we're willing to start, you wanna start at 380, there are 26 homes for sale in this market that are listed at 375 and you can start at 380. Now, all things being equal, what is it about this house that makes it worth $5,000 more than the other 26 homes? And if they've got a good reason, like it's got gold toilets, all right, there we go. Or it's got a brand new roof and these don't. Fantastic. But if there's nothing special about this house, if this house is probably even in worse condition than the other homes that are already listed on the market, that number's not gonna work. And what I want for you is this, then you make a decision. Do you want to move forward with that seller or do you not? And that's part of the confidence and that's part of the expertise in the decision making. I want you to make informed decisions for yourself. You don't have to take every single listing. Some listings aren't worth it. Right now, I have somebody who reached out to me and said, "Property a few years ago, I have another house. We've moved. Go by and see it. Never saw it." Absolutely. Went by the house. Beautiful. That gated community I was telling you about, it's got a pool. It's 5,000 square feet. It's just this large two-story home. It's gorgeous. And it's dated. It is very, very dated. There is not a single thing in this house that hasn't been updated. And they even did some, I can't say because I don't want them to, there's just, it's just very dated. And in this market, today, that is not gonna work. And I asked them, I said, "Okay, I need to know how much, if anything, are you willing to do to this house to bring it from here to bring it here to match the other homes for sale in the neighborhood?" And they said, "Nothing." And I said, "Okay, it needs some paint. We gotta take care of some issues." And they said, "Nope, nope. We've started a new life in a different city. It is what it is. We're not gonna do anything to it." And so I immediately knew from the other homes in the neighborhood, we have to price this house significantly lower than those other homes in order to even remotely attract a buyer. Because if they price it at the neighborhood number and the neighborhood number has few updated features throughout the entire house, then why as a buyer would you come in and pay the same amount for a house that needs to spend $100,000 on doing those upgrades? So the decision is, do I take the listing and hope that they're going to decide one day, you know what, we're ready to sell the property and we're going to make the price change? Or if I take the listing at that higher number, do they fire me because they want that number and they feel like I can't deliver it? So they're gonna fire me and go with somebody else who's gonna tell them what I already told them, but stick to their guns and say, "No, I'm not touching it. I'm not gonna touch it with this because it's never gonna sell." So you make a decision because it's expensive. You gotta pay for the photography, you're gonna spend your time updating weekly on what's going on. So taking a listing isn't free. You can get fired if you spend all this time and money on something that doesn't end up going anywhere. You've got this product, you're doing a CMA a day, and you know what the market values are, and you are able to explain them and defend them, then you know if you should take a listing or not. It also goes the other way, it helps the buyers. When a buyer is making an offer and you're like, "Hey, wait a second, this number that they're listing at is way too high. It should be this number over here, and here's all the data to support it. And when we submit the offer, we will, submit all the data to help them understand why we came up. We didn't just pull a number out of our hat. We're supporting why it came up and why we think an appraiser is going to agree with us. And then Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if you still want to pay this number for that house, the right to do so. And if it doesn't appraise and you're willing to bring the difference to the table, you are willing to do so. But if it doesn't appraise and you walk away and you're out your inspection, your survey, your bank appraisal, your time, you're not getting that back. And if you're going to be upset about that, then maybe you shouldn't make an offer. All of this is about information to make a decision, not just for the buyer and seller, but for you too, because you're involved in this equation and your time is money. And again, you don't get customers by not being out there and people seeing you. You have to be an option. And the only way to be an option is to be visible and to be visible in such a way that you bring value and you bring knowledge and education is how you're going to get hired. Not because you got some cute dancing video up there or you put in your just listed or your just sold because nobody cares. Nobody. Yeah. Still, nobody cares. What they care about is the value that you bring them. How you help them solve their problems because it's all about them. And if you can take care of them, then they will take care of you. So I hope that helped you today. If I know we're out of time, if I did not chance to answer your question, then absolutely send me a text, email, a DM, or you guys know where to catch me. Catch me, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have that I did not get to on. Thanks, and I look forward to seeing you next week.